The sun was just beginning to rise over the rolling hills, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. In a small, quiet village tucked away from the busy world, a young shepherd was already awake, preparing for another long day. His clothes were simple and worn, but clean, and his hands were rough from years of hard work guiding his small flock of sheep through the hills and valleys. Despite the cold mornings and the hard labor, he always carried a gentle smile and a light in his eyes that spoke of hope and dreams. From a distance, the villagers could often see him walking with his sheep, singing softly under his breath. His voice was not trained or perfect, but it had a warmth that made even the birds pause to listen. He loved his flock, cared for them, and spoke to them as if they could understand every word. Yet what he loved most was a young girl from the village. She was kind, cheerful, and had a spirit as free as the wind that swept through the hills. Every day he would catch glimpses of her helping her family, tending to the small garden near her home, or laughing with the children of the village. Her laughter was music to him, and her smile brightened even his hardest days. Life for the shepherd was not easy. His family was poor, and the village offered very little in terms of opportunities. Most days, he would wake before sunrise, lead his sheep to graze, collect firewood, and then help his family with chores. In the evenings, he would sit by the fire, tired but content, dreaming of a better life and imagining a future where he could share his happiness with the girl he loved. He never asked for much. He only wished for a life filled with kindness, love, and respect. The girl noticed him too. She had seen how patiently he cared for his sheep, how honestly he lived his life, and how genuinely he treated everyone in the village, no matter how poor or humble. There was something about his quiet strength that drew her to him. Whenever their eyes met, a small smile would appear, and a silent understanding would pass between them. They didn't need words. Their hearts spoke clearly to one another. But the world they lived in was not fair. The girl's family was wealthy by the village standards, owning land and some livestock. They looked down on the shepherd, seeing him as nothing more than a poor boy with no future. They believed that love could not exist across such different worlds, that security and status mattered more than honesty and kindness. They warned her not to waste her time with him, reminding her constantly that a life with him would be full of hardship and struggle. The shepherd was aware of this. He knew that, no matter how much he loved her, he had little to offer in terms of wealth or status. Yet he never let bitterness take hold. He continued to work hard, to live simply, and to love quietly. Every time he saw her, his heart would swell, but he understood the boundaries that society had placed around them. He respected her family, never challenging them directly, even when he felt the pain of their judgment. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the village, the shepherd found himself sitting near a small stream. He watched the reflection of the stars beginning to appear in the water and thought about the life he wanted to build. He imagined a future where he could provide for the girl he loved, where his efforts and dreams could one day match her family's expectations. The thought made his heart ache with longing, but also filled him with determination. He whispered to himself, promising that he would not give up, that he would find a way to rise above his circumstances. Days passed, and the seasons changed, but the shepherd's life remained largely the same. Each day brought new challenges: stormy weather, sick sheep, and scarce food, but also moments of quiet joy. He found beauty in the simple things, the laughter of the children, the soft breeze through the trees, and the occasional kind words from villagers who noticed his hard work. Every moment was a reminder that life could be tough, yet still full of grace and hope. The girl would often watch him from a distance, noting how he never complained, how he always found a way to solve problems, and how his heart remained pure despite the hardships. She admired his strength, even though she feared the future. Their interactions were small: a shared glance, a brief smile, a wave across the village square, but each moment carried the weight of unspoken emotions, of love that grew stronger with every passing day. One day, the shepherd found a small injured lamb that had strayed from the flock. Its leg was hurt, and it could barely walk. He gently picked it up, carrying it back to his small shelter, and tended to it with patience and care. He worked tirelessly to nurse it back to health, refusing to give up even when the task seemed impossible. Watching him, the girl felt a mix of admiration and tenderness. She wanted to tell him how she felt, to let him know that his efforts did not go unnoticed. But her fear of her family's reaction held her back. Still, her heart was with him, quietly cheering for his every success, no matter how small. Time went on, and the bond between them grew, though it remained unspoken. The shepherd continued his work, dreaming of a life where he could be worthy of her love. The girl continued her duties, dreaming of a life where love and happiness could overcome the barriers placed by wealth and status. Both carried hope in their hearts, a quiet, steadfast hope that one day life would allow them to be together. In the village, whispers began to spread about the young shepherd and the girl. Some admired his dedication and honesty, while others doubted he could ever rise above his circumstances. Still, he never let the opinions of others sway him. He focused on what he could control: his work, his dreams, and his heart. Every morning, he greeted the sun with a renewed determination. Every evening, he went to sleep with hope in his heart. And every moment in between was filled with love and care for those around him, even in the face of poverty and societal judgment. The shepherd remained kind, honest, and patient. His love for the girl never wavered, and his hope for a better future never dimmed. The village, with all its challenges and hardships, became a silent witness to his quiet heroism, his unwavering spirit, and his unspoken love. The world outside might have judged him as insignificant, but in the hearts of those who truly saw him, he was already extraordinary. And so, life continued in the village. The shepherd tended his sheep, worked with his family, and dreamed of the future. The girl carried her affection for him quietly, hoping for a day when love could overcome all obstacles. Though they were separated by circumstances, their hearts were intertwined in a bond that neither time nor society could break. In every glance, every smile, and every small act of kindness, the seeds of a love that would one day change everything were being carefully sown, waiting for the right moment to bloom into a story of hope, perseverance, and triumph. The shepherd continued to work each day, guiding his flock through the hills, caring for the sheep with patience, and helping his family however he could. Yet a quiet sorrow lingered in his heart. He loved the girl deeply, but he knew her family would never accept him. Their wealth and social status created a wall he could not climb. He tried to push his feelings aside, convincing himself that perhaps one day things might change. But the ache of longing was hard to ignore. The girl noticed his quiet sadness. Her eyes would follow him across the fields, and she would feel a pang in her heart. She wanted to speak to him, to tell him that she cared, that she felt the same way, but the fear of her family's anger kept her silent. Her life had always been guided by the wishes of her parents, and she knew that defying them would bring trouble not just to her, but to her loved ones. And yet every stolen glance, every secret smile, revealed the love that both of them shared without words. One afternoon, a commotion arose in the village square. The girl's parents had announced that she would be married to a wealthy merchant's son from a neighboring town. The shepherd had heard the news from afar, and his heart sank. He felt a sharp pain, as though someone had taken hold of it and squeezed. The thought of losing her forever was unbearable. He wanted to rush to her side, to tell her that he would never stop loving her. But he knew that words alone could not change her family's decision. He had no wealth, no connections, no influence. He was just a shepherd, and in the eyes of the world, that was not enough. The days that followed were heavy with sorrow. The shepherd tried to focus on his work, but the fields seemed emptier, the hills lonelier, and even the sun seemed to shine less brightly. He would sometimes sit by the stream, staring at the water, thinking of what might have been, wondering if he would ever have a chance to show the girl that love could matter more than wealth. His heart ached with a mixture of grief and determination. He promised himself that he would not give up, that he would find a way to rise above his circumstances and one day return to her every evening. He would watch the village from a distance, seeing the girl helping her family, laughing with friends, or tending to her chores. His heart would fill with both pride and pain. He admired her strength, her kindness, and her beauty, yet he felt powerless. He longed to tell her that he would return, that he would find a way to build a life worthy of her love. But the words caught in his throat, trapped by the reality of his situation. The shepherd began to plan his departure. He knew he needed to leave the village, to seek opportunities beyond the hills, beyond the small lives of the villagers. He needed to learn, to grow, to find a way to make his dreams real. The thought of leaving the place he had always called home was painful. The hills, the fields, the village, and most of all the girl he loved, were all part of him. But he understood that if he stayed, he would remain trapped. Watching the life he wanted slip further away each day, he packed his few belongings, taking only what was essential. His worn clothes, a small blanket, and a few coins his family had saved over the years were all he could carry. He left a note for the girl, simple and heartfelt, telling her that he loved her and that he would return one day no matter what it took. He left it by the place where they had often met in secret, near the stream where they had shared quiet moments together. He hoped she would find it and understand that his departure was not the end, but the beginning of a journey he had to take. The night before he left, the village was quiet. The shepherd sat by his small shelter, staring at the stars. He thought of all the dreams he held in his heart, of the life he wanted to build, and of the girl he loved more than anything. He whispered promises into the night sky, promising that he would work tirelessly, that he would never forget her, and that he would return stronger and wiser. Sleep came fitfully, with dreams filled with both hope and sorrow. The following morning, before the sun rose, the shepherd began his journey. He walked through the hills, carrying his small bundle and leading his flock as far as the paths would allow. Each step was heavy with emotion, but also filled with determination. He knew that the road ahead would be difficult. There would be hardships, hunger, fatigue, and moments of doubt. Yet, he also knew that he had a fire within him, a determination that no obstacle could extinguish. He traveled to the city, a place of endless possibilities and unknown dangers. The streets were crowded, the air filled with noise, and the pace of life was unlike anything he had ever known. At first, the shepherd felt lost and overwhelmed. He had grown up among hills and fields, not crowded markets and tall buildings. But he remembered his promise to the girl and the life he wanted to build. He would not allow fear or uncertainty to stop him. The shepherd took on any work he could find. He carried goods, tended to animals in stables, and did odd jobs for those who needed help. The work was hard, and the city was unforgiving, but he never complained. Each day, he learned new skills, met new people, and discovered opportunities that he had never imagined. He saved every coin he could, thinking not of comfort for himself, but of the future he could create. Even in the city, his thoughts often returned to the girl. He wondered how she was, if she missed him, if she thought of him as he thought of her. Sometimes he would catch sight of couples walking hand in hand and feel a pang of loneliness. Yet he never let these feelings paralyze him. He used them as fuel, reminding himself that his journey was not just for survival, but for love. For the promise he had made to the girl waiting in the village, months turned into years. The shepherd worked tirelessly, learning, growing, slowly building a reputation for honesty, hard work, and reliability. He met people who saw his potential, who guided him, and who offered opportunities that he seized with both hands. He faced setbacks, failures, and moments of despair, but each challenge strengthened him. He remembered the quiet hills of his village, the girl's smile, and the promise he had whispered under the stars. He refused to let go of his dreams. As time passed, the shepherd began to see the fruits of his labor. Small successes turned into larger ones. Investments, wise decisions, and relentless effort led him to a life of increasing stability and prosperity. He no longer felt lost in the world. He had found his place. Yet even with his growing success, he never forgot the girl. His heart remained tethered to the village, to the life he had left behind, and to the love that had motivated him from the very beginning, in quiet moments. He would close his eyes and picture returning to the village, stronger, wiser, and able to provide the life he had once only dreamed of sharing with her. He imagined the look in her eyes when she saw him again. The moment she realized that the boy she had once loved had become a man capable of making dreams come true, the thought of that day filled him with energy and purpose, pushing him to work harder, to strive further, and to never give up. Through all the hardships, the loneliness, and the struggles, the shepherd's love remained unwavering. It was not a love born of convenience or comfort, but a love forged in patience, hope, and resilience. He had left the village as a poor boy, heartbroken and uncertain. But he was determined that he would one day return, not as the shepherd they had overlooked, but as someone they could not ignore. His journey was only beginning, and the road ahead, though challenging, held the promise of a love and life that he had always dreamed of achieving. The city was a whirlwind of noise, movement, and endless possibilities. The young shepherd, once used to the quiet hills and gentle winds, now found himself among crowded streets, unfamiliar faces, and towering buildings that seemed to touch the sky. At first, he was overwhelmed. Every sound, every movement, every glance from strangers reminded him of how small he was in this vast, busy world. Yet, beneath the fear and uncertainty, a fire burned within him. He had a purpose, and he refused to let the city swallow his dreams. He took the first job he could find, carrying goods for a small merchant. The work was exhausting and the city's pace was unforgiving, but he did not complain. Each day, as he carried heavy sacks and ran errands through the bustling streets, he learned the rhythm of the city. He observed how business worked, how people negotiated, and how opportunities appeared to those who were alert and persistent. Slowly, he began to understand that success here was not just about strength or effort. It was about intelligence, patience, and timing, despite the long hours and physical strain. He never allowed himself to forget why he had come. Each coin he earned, he tucked away, not for immediate comfort, but for the future he envisioned. At night, in his small, modest room, he would sit by the window, gazing at the distant hills he had left behind and imagining the life he wanted to build. He thought of the girl, her smile, her laughter, and the way her eyes had once met his with understanding and affection. These thoughts became his guiding light, giving him strength when exhaustion and doubt threatened to overwhelm him. He began to take on more complex work, learning the details of commerce, trade, and finance. He worked with other merchants, observing how they invested their money, how they managed their businesses, and how they recognized opportunities that others missed. He asked questions, took notes, and slowly built a network of acquaintances who would eventually become allies. Each lesson learned was a step closer to his dream, and he approached each challenge with the same patience and determination he had shown as a shepherd. Over time, he discovered a small opportunity that could change his life. A merchant needed someone honest and capable to oversee the delivery and trade of rare goods. The young shepherd volunteered, proving himself through hard work, reliability, and quick thinking. He learned to negotiate, to plan logistics, and to manage risks. Slowly, the small tasks grew into larger responsibilities, and the small payments became significant earnings. He began to see that the city, with all its chaos, offered chances for someone willing to work, learn, and persist. Even as he worked tirelessly, he remained humble. He remembered the lessons from his village, the value of honesty, the importance of kindness, and the strength that comes from patience. He treated those around him with respect, even when others were rude or dismissive. People began to notice his character as much as his ability. Opportunities opened not just because of his skills, but because of the trust and respect he earned. In a world that often rewarded cunning over honesty, he stood out for his integrity, and that became one of his greatest assets. Despite his growing success, he never forgot the girl. Every achievement, every coin saved, every new skill learned was with her in mind. He imagined the day he would return to the village, not as the poor shepherd they had overlooked, but as someone who could offer security, happiness, and a life filled with love. The thought of her kept him awake when exhaustion weighed him down, pushed him forward when setbacks occurred, and reminded him of the reason behind every effort he made. Years passed, and the shepherd transformed. He became a trusted partner in business, known for his honesty and insight. He invested wisely, taking calculated risks that paid off over time. Small successes multiplied, and his wealth grew. Yet, with each step forward, he remained grounded, never allowing greed or pride to cloud his judgment. He remembered the simplicity of the hills, the quiet life of the village, the lessons his humble upbringing had taught him. During this time, he also began to learn about influence and strategy. He observed how those with power maintained it, how networks of trust could be built, and how decisions shaped lives in ways that went beyond money. He realized that to truly achieve his dream, he needed not just wealth, but understanding, wisdom, the ability to navigate the complex world around him. He sought mentors, read extensively, continued to challenge himself in ways that stretched both his mind and character, even with the demands of his growing career. He never stopped thinking of the village and the girl. He imagined her life, the choices she was forced to make, and the love she had once shared with him. Each reflection strengthened his resolve. He understood that true success was not about wealth alone. It was about the ability to make a difference, to create opportunities, and to fulfill promises that mattered most to the heart. His ambition was fueled not by vanity, but by love and the desire to return to the one who had believed in him before the world had by now. The shepherd had become known among merchants and traders for his skill, reliability, and vision. He began to invest in larger ventures, taking the knowledge and experience he had gained and applying it to new opportunities. Risks that would have seemed impossible years before were now calculated moves, each step deliberate and informed. With each successful venture, his wealth grew, but so did his confidence and understanding of the world. He had become more than a shepherd. He had become a man capable of shaping his own destiny. Despite his transformation, he remained humble in his heart. He never forgot where he had come from, or the person he loved who had inspired his journey. He often found himself looking at the stars, imagining the hills of the village, and whispering promises of the life he would one day share with her. The distance, the years, and the challenges had not diminished his love. If anything, they had strengthened it, forging it into something enduring and unbreakable. Then came a moment that would change everything. A major opportunity arose, a venture that required courage, vision, and perseverance. The shepherd saw it as a chance not just to grow his wealth, but to secure the life he had always dreamed of sharing with the girl. He worked tirelessly, often late into the night, planning, negotiating, and executing every detail. The risk was great, but his determination was greater. He knew that failure was possible, but he also knew that without taking the leap, his dreams would remain just dreams. The venture succeeded beyond expectations. The shepherd's reputation soared, and his wealth multiplied. People who had once overlooked him began to take notice, and doors that had been closed for years now opened. Yet, he remained the same at heart. He celebrated quietly, knowing that true victory was not just in the wealth he had earned, but in the promise it represented. The promise that he could now return to the village and the girl he loved as a man, who had fulfilled his own potential. As he looked back on his journey, from the quiet hills of his village to the bustling streets of the city, he felt a sense of gratitude. Every struggle, every setback, every lonely night had prepared him for this moment. He had grown not just in wealth, but in wisdom, patience, and resilience. And throughout it all, the image of the girl he loved had been a guiding light, reminding him of the purpose behind his efforts and the life he still wished to build now. The young shepherd, once poor and overlooked, was ready to return. He carried not just wealth, but experience, confidence, and a heart that had remained true. The city had shaped him, challenged him, and tested him, but it had never broken him. And in his heart, the promise of love and the dream of returning to the girl remained as vivid as ever. The journey had been long, the obstacles many, but he had persevered. And soon the quiet hills of his village would witness a transformation not just of a man, but of a love that had endured every trial and distance, ready to bloom in a way that no one could have predicted. Years had passed since the young shepherd had left his village, and the hills that once seemed so familiar now held only memories in his heart. The boy who had walked among the sheep with dreams in his eyes had become a man, confident, accomplished, and wealthy. Yet, despite all he had gained in the city, his heart remained anchored to the village and the girl he had loved from afar. He remembered every detail, the way sunlight fell across her face, the gentle sound of her laughter, the kindness in her eyes. These memories had guided him through every challenge, every setback, and every lonely night. The day he decided to return, he felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. The journey back to the village was familiar, yet it seemed different. The hills were still there, rolling gently under the sky, but the world he carried within him had changed. He no longer walked as the poor shepherd. He walked as a man who had proven himself to the world and to himself. Each step brought memories rushing back, both joyful and bittersweet. He could almost hear the laughter of children, the murmur of villagers, and the faint echo of conversations from years past. As he approached the village, he noticed how little some things had changed. The same winding paths, the small stone houses, and the familiar fields greeted him. Yet there was also change. The village had grown slightly. Some houses were newer, and the people had aged just as he had. His heart raced as he remembered the girl and wondered how she had fared all these years. He hoped she was happy, that life had treated her kindly. But deep down, he wished to see her once more, to know that the love they shared had endured in her heart as it had in his. He arrived quietly. Observing the village without drawing attention to himself, people whispered as they passed, recognizing the stranger with an air of respect and curiosity. He had transformed, and the villagers noticed. The shepherd they had once overlooked was no longer the same. He carried himself with confidence, and the subtle wealth and presence he now possessed demanded acknowledgement. Yet he did not seek recognition. His only desire was to see the girl, to know that his journey had been worthwhile, and that their love could survive the passage of time and the distance that had separated them. The girl had changed too. Though the essence of her kindness and warmth remained, she had faced her own challenges, fulfilling responsibilities, and navigating life as best she could. Yet, despite the years and the changes, her heart still held a quiet place for the boy she had once loved. She often wondered about him, about the life he had led, and whether he had remembered her as she had remembered him. When she first noticed the man entering the village, something stirred deep within her. There was a familiarity in the way he moved, a calm strength in his presence that felt both new and profoundly known. The shepherd did not rush to meet her. He observed from a distance, studying the surroundings and the people. He wanted the moment of their reunion to be meaningful, not rushed. He watched her going about her daily tasks, still graceful and kind, still radiating the warmth that had captivated him years ago. His heart swelled with both longing and pride. The girl had become even more beautiful in spirit and character. And he realized that his love for her had only deepened with time. Villagers began to whisper, speculating about the stranger who had returned. Some recognized him as the boy who had left long ago, while others were unsure. Stories of his success and accomplishments began to circulate, and people slowly began to understand that he was no ordinary man. Yet he moved with humility, never flaunting his wealth or status. His focus remained on the one person who mattered most to him, the girl, who had always held his heart. Finally, the moment came. She was in the village square, helping a neighbor with a small task, when their eyes met. Time seemed to pause. Recognition dawned, and a mix of emotions swept over her surprise. Joy, disbelief, and a flood of memories from their shared past. He approached her slowly, a warm smile on his face, eyes reflecting the years of longing and determination that had led him back. She stepped back slightly, unsure whether to run to him or remain composed, her heart pounding in her chest. He spoke first, softly and sincerely. He told her that he had never stopped thinking of her, that he had worked tirelessly to create a life worthy of the love they had shared. He explained that his journey had been long and difficult, but every step had been driven by the hope of returning to her. She listened, tears filling her eyes, as she realized that the boy she had loved had indeed kept his promise. and that his love had endured every challenge. Every hardship, the villagers watched quietly, sensing the significance of the reunion. This was not a meeting of strangers, but a culmination of years of devotion, patience, and unwavering love. The girl took a step forward, and without hesitation, they embraced. In that moment, all the years of separation, longing, and unspoken words melted away. The shepherd had returned, not just as a man of wealth, but as a man who had remained true to his heart and to the love that had guided him from the very beginning. Word of their reunion spread through the village, and people marveled at the transformation. They remembered the boy who had left, the poor shepherd who had been overlooked, and they now saw a man who had achieved greatness through perseverance, intelligence, and integrity. Yet the shepherd never let pride overshadow his humility. His joy was found not in recognition, but in the simple truth that he was reunited with the girl he had loved so deeply. The girl's family, who had once looked down upon him, now viewed him with a mixture of respect and awe. They realized that they had underestimated the strength, determination, and character of the young man they had dismissed years ago. Though they may have once opposed their union, they could not ignore the proof of his accomplishments and the sincerity of his love. Slowly, they began to accept that he was worthy, not just because of wealth, but because of the man he had become and the heart he had maintained throughout the years. As days passed, the shepherd and the girl spent more time together, rediscovering the bond that had never truly faded. They walked along the hills where they had once shared quiet moments, revisited the stream where he had left his note, and laughed together as if no time had passed at all. The years of hardship, separation, and struggle had made their love stronger, deeper, and more resilient. They shared stories of their journeys, their challenges, and their dreams. Finding comfort and joy in each other's presence, the shepherd also used his knowledge and resources to help the village. He invested in projects that improved the lives of the villagers, built opportunities for work, and offered guidance to those who sought it. His actions reflected not only his success, but his continued humility and commitment to kindness. People began to see him not just as a man of wealth, but as someone who truly cared for others, who had not forgotten the values he had learned as a shepherd. The girl, now confident in the life they could build together, felt a sense of peace and fulfillment she had never known. She had seen the man he had become, the depth of his character, and the unwavering love that had guided him back to her. Together, they dreamed of a future where love, respect, and shared values would guide their lives, free from the constraints of wealth, status, or judgment. In the quiet moments, when the sun set over the hills and the village lay calm, they would sit together and reflect on the journey that had brought them back to each other. The shepherd remembered the days of his youth, the struggles he had faced, and the love that had fueled every effort. The girl remembered the boy who had once walked among the sheep, the one whose heart had remained true despite hardship. And in those reflections, they found not just love, but a profound understanding of resilience, patience, and the enduring power of the human heart. The shepherd had returned, not just as a man of wealth, but as a symbol of hope and perseverance. The girl had found in him the embodiment of love that could withstand distance, time, and hardship. Together, they embraced the life they had dreamed of, knowing that the journey had tested them, shaped them, and ultimately prepared them for the happiness they now shared. Their story became a testament to the idea that true love is never lost, that dedication and integrity can overcome even the greatest obstacles, and that the human heart, when guided by hope and courage, can achieve the extraordinary. The village had changed subtly over the years, but the essence of it remained the same: hills, the same streams, and the same warmth in the hearts of those who lived there. The shepherd, now a man of wealth and experience, had returned not as the boy who had left, but as someone who had proven himself through perseverance, intelligence, and unwavering determination. Yet, despite his success, the true measure of his journey was not in the riches he had accumulated, but in the love he had nurtured and the promise he had kept in his heart. Every day he spent time with the girl, walking through the hills and fields, revisiting the places where their young hearts had first connected. Each step was a reminder of the years they had spent apart, struggles they had endured, and the hope that had never faded. They shared stories of their journeys, of the challenges they had faced, and the lessons they had learned. In these conversations, they found a deeper connection, a love that had matured and grown stronger with time. The villagers watched them with admiration and curiosity. The shepherd's return had become a story of inspiration, a testament to the power of determination, love, and integrity. People who had once doubted him now looked upon him with respect, and some even sought his guidance and advice. He treated everyone with humility, offering help without seeking recognition, demonstrating that true success was not just about wealth, but about the positive impact one could have on others. The girl's family, who had once opposed their union, gradually came to understand the depth of his character. They saw that he had not only achieved material success, but had done so with honesty and resilience. The love he had carried in his heart had guided him through hardships, shaping him into a man worthy of respect and admiration. Over time, they embraced the idea that he was not just suitable for their daughter because of his accomplishments, but because of the integrity and kindness that had always defined him. As they spent more time together, the shepherd and the girl began to plan a future that combined their shared dreams with the lessons they had learned. They talked about helping the village, supporting education, and creating opportunities for those who struggled as they once had. Their love was not just personal, it was a force that inspired hope and growth in the community around them. Together, they envisioned a life where compassion, wisdom, and ambition coexisted, shaping a legacy that went beyond themselves. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with warm hues of orange and pink, they walked to the old stream where he had left his notes so many years ago. The water reflected the colors of the sky, and the gentle sound of the flowing stream brought back memories of their youth. He turned to her, taking her hands in his, and spoke of the promise he had made all those years ago, the promise to return, stronger, wiser, and ready to share a life built on love and commitment. She listened, her eyes shining with tears. Feeling the depth of his sincerity and the endurance of his love, they embraced, holding each other as if the years of separation had never existed. In that moment, the past and present merged, and the future seemed filled with infinite possibilities. The village around them, the hills, the fields, and the people, all became part of a larger story, a story of resilience, love, and the extraordinary outcomes that can arise from determination and patience. The shepherd used his resources to bring meaningful change to the village. He helped build new homes, improved infrastructure, and supported local businesses, invested in education, ensuring that children in the village would have access to knowledge and opportunities that were once out of reach. His actions were guided not by ego or desire for fame, but by a genuine commitment to making life better for others, reflecting the values he had learned through his own struggles. The girl stood by his side, contributing her own ideas and efforts. Together, they created initiatives that improved daily life and inspired hope. Their partnership became a model of love, collaboration, and shared purpose. Villagers saw in them not just a couple reunited by fate, but a living example of how perseverance, integrity, and unwavering belief in one another could transform lives and communities. In their private moments, they continued to nurture their bond, sharing laughter, dreams, and quiet reflections. They found joy in simple things, walking through the hills, tending to small gardens, and sitting by the stream watching the world go by. These moments, grounded in love and mutual respect, reminded them of the journey that had brought them together, and of the promise that had guided the shepherd through every challenge. The years of hardship, the long separation, and the personal growth had not diminished their love. It had strengthened it. They understood each other in ways that only those who have faced trials together or apart, yet with hearts connected, can understand. Every glance, every touch, and every shared word carried the weight of experience, patience, and enduring affection. The shepherd's story became a tale told among villagers and travelers alike. It was a story of a boy who had been overlooked, a young man who faced despair, and a man who returned to claim love and respect through his unwavering character and dedication. It was a reminder that true worth is not measured solely by wealth, but by perseverance, integrity, and the capacity to love deeply and sincerely. For the girl, Shepard's return represented not just the fulfillment of a promise, but the triumph of hope and loyalty. She had waited, and in doing so had preserved a love that was pure and enduring. Together, they proved that time, distance, and hardship cannot extinguish the flame of true affection, and that those who remain steadfast in heart and spirit will ultimately find their way back to one another. As seasons changed, they continued to grow together, both personally and in their contributions to the village. They became mentors to the youth, guiding them with stories of resilience and love. They celebrated the small victories and supported each other through the inevitable challenges of life. Their partnership was built not on circumstance, but on mutual respect, shared values, and a deep understanding of each other's hearts. In quiet evenings, as they watched the stars shimmer above the hills, they would reflect on the journey that had brought them together. The shepherd remembered the days of youth, the struggles in the city, and the challenges that had tested his resolve. The girl remembered the boy who had loved her quietly, the promise that had been whispered by the stream, and the unwavering hope that had sustained her heart. Together, they celebrated the fulfillment of dreams long held, the power of love, and the beauty of a life shaped by patience and courage. Their love story became a symbol of hope, inspiring others to believe in perseverance, integrity, and the enduring strength of the human heart. The shepherd, once poor and overlooked, had returned not just as a man of wealth, but as a man whose heart had remained true, whose character had been tested and proven, and whose love had endured against all odds. The girl whose heart had waited faithfully found in him the fulfillment of a love that was patient, unwavering, and profound. Together, they lived a life filled with purpose, love, the quiet satisfaction of knowing that their journey, though long and challenging, had brought them exactly where they were meant to be. The village thrived, their hearts were full, and the story of the shepherd and the girl became a timeless testament to the power of hope, determination, and the extraordinary potential of a love that never gives up.